Mānoa mai e te pūtanga o Matariki. Mānoa mai e te āriki o te rangi. Mānoa mai e te mātahi o te tau. Tukua ngā mate o te tau kia pōhutukawa, kua wheturangi hi o koutou. E tū te puānuku, e tū te puārangi. E tū waiti, e tū waitā. E tū waipunarangi, e tū ururangi, e tū hiwa i te rangi. Matariki atua ka eke ki runga. Nau mai ngā hua, nau mai ngā taonga, nau mai te mātahi o te tau. Haumi e, hui e, taiki e. Tēnā koutou katoa, welcome to this breakfast special as we look forward to celebrating the Māori New Year with our first Matariki public holiday this Friday. One person who has been driving this kaupapa right from the beginning, good friend of ours here on Breakfast, Professor Rangi Mātāmua, who joins us. Ngā mihi kia koe e te rangatira, nau mai whakatau mai.
Tēnā koe tuahine, mānoa tia Matariki.
Mānoa tia Matariki. Ko te pātai tuatahi, first question is, hea tēnei mea ko te Matariki. What is Matariki and why is it celebrated by Māori at this time of the year?
So Matariki is what the rest of the world know as the Pleiades, and it is one of the earliest and best recorded cluster or group of stars in the night sky throughout the world. In fact, there's records of it that date back to 17,000 years ago when it's painted on a cave in southern France. Right across the globe, people used it to mark harvest, to mark planting, hunting, the new year, and in the Pacific, its most common name is Matariki, and it's spread and was taken by the ancestors of the Māori through to every island, and we used it as a marker of time. And when our ancestors got here to Aotearoa, they looked around at the environment and they noticed that Matariki in particular rises in the eastern sky just before the sun during the middle of winter, and it's close to the shortest day of the year, and so when it was in the sky just before the sun, they knew it was the shortest day of the year, and so they used it and applied it as a marker of the Māori New Year, hence its significance.
And it just tells me how onto it our tupuna, our ancestors were, which means that we're onto it. So we know that each star has its own significance. So with the power of technology, we're going to bring each whetū in one by one. So let's start with Pōhutukawa.
So Pōhutukawa is the star that our ancestors believed carried the dead across the night sky, night after night, month after month. And when that cluster returns to the horizon in the morning, just before the sun, the dead of the year make their final journey into the sky, where they become stars against the chest of the sky for eternity. And we look up at them at night time, we acknowledge our ancestors, and that's the significance of Pōhutukawa, who in terms of genealogy is followed by the star Tipuanuku. Tipuanuku means to grow in the ground, and is the star that is associated and connected to all of the produce we get out of our gardens, kumara, pumpkins, potatoes, whatever that grows in the ground or on the ground. Following on from Tipuanuku is the star Tipuarangi. Tipuarangi is connected to the forests, to the birds, to the berries, to the trees, to tāne mahuta, and everything that we get out of that domain. It's an environmental connector for us, and it feeds into our well-being. So when that star is bright, we know, the birds are really going to flourish this year. And following on from Tipuarangi is Waiti. Waiti is freshwater. Estuaries, whitebait, eels, flounder, all of those creatures have an association to Waiti. And Waiti is freshwater itself as well, so it's about being aware of the quality of our fresh water. When that star is bright, we know the eels will be in good numbers. And following on is Waitā. Tā is salt, Waitā is salt water. And all of the creatures that come from the domain of Tangaroa, all of the fish, the ocean itself has a deep and close association to that star, and it marks how bountiful that part is going to be within our environment. Following on from Waitā is Waipunarangi. Waipunarangi means water that pools in the sky. It's so important, right? No rain, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And so it will determine what the season's going to be like in terms of rain, if we're going to get a drought, if we're going to get flooding. And following on from Waipunarangi is Ururangi, which is the star of the winds. And winds are so important to the environment.
Yeah.
And Māori, we have hundreds and hundreds of names for different winds, where they come from, how strong they are, what they do within the environment. So winds are crucial to our well-being. And the youngest star in the cluster, my personal favourite, is Hiwa Te Rangi. Hiwa means to grow lush in the sky. And Hiwa Te Rangi is a star where we send our wishes for the year. Particularly, they're not like wishes like where we say, you know, I'm going to go on a diet this year. I'm going to the gym. Yeah, and then we find we're on to come from the gym and go through the drive-through. He was about, this year I wish for a productive garden so I can help feed my family and my community. They're community and environmentally driven wishes. Now all of these children, they're actually the children of the centre star, which is Matariki. She is a mother of the cluster. All of them feed into the well-being of people, and that's what Matariki represents. When that star is bright, it is a sign of peace, it is a sign of well-being for people on earth, and that's the wider and deeper meaning to the stars in the cluster and the cluster itself.
Beautiful. So our ancestors would look into the sky, look at the cluster, and they could tell by just looking how bright the star was or not bright, what kind of year was coming ahead. A lot of information to take in. If you were to kind of boil it down to the most important things for people to understand and to know about Matariki and the Māori New Year, what would that be?
Matariki is a celebration that's underpinned by three major principles. Number one, it's about reflection. It's about remembering those that have come before us and the lessons and I guess the treasures they've left to us. And we've lost a lot of people this year, and we remember the example that they've set for us and we celebrate them at that moment. So it's about reflection. Number two, it's about celebrating who we are, feasting, celebration, entertainment, coming together as people to celebrate our identity and the things that are important to us, our environment. Someone asked me, should I buy presents during Matariki? And people might be thinking that. You know, my response is, no, be present. Spend quality, dedicated time with your family and friends and loved ones and connect. The third thing is about planning for the future, looking forward, thinking about what we can do to support one another, to improve our environment. You know, if there is a single key message, though, it's coming together. The cluster is a group of stars that represents different parts of the environment or our world, slightly different in sizes, different in where they're positioned, but they rise as one cluster, one group in the morning sky, and that's a symbolic kind of message to us all that when the stars rise as one group, Matariki Hunganui, we're meant to come together as rise as one people, one nation, and unite under those stars in the morning.
So on that note then, finally, our first public holiday coming up this Friday, how important and how significant is that? So significant, because pretty much everything else that we celebrate is imported from the other side of the world, and we do some interesting things like celebrate flying reindeer and snow in the middle of December, and we celebrate these things that are imported from other parts of the world when this is something that's unique to us. There is no politics within Matariki. There is no friction within Matariki. There is no conflict within Matariki. Matariki is about bringing people together for unity, for identity, and there isn't a single person living in Aotearoa who does not descend from ancestors who use the stars to navigate, to tell time, to plant, to harvest. We all did it. It's part of being human. And I hope that serves, and they serve as a cluster of stars and a symbolic message to us all to come together and celebrate who we are. Tāhua tēnā. Thank you so much for sharing that knowledge with us, with our audience this morning. Nei rā te mihi atu ki a koe. Celebrate Matariki, ne? Mānoatia Matariki.
Mānoatia Matariki.